Well, hello. Welcome to Black Men Speak, a podcast that highlights ordinary men doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and on tonight's show, we're going to feature a young man that I read about in kind of early June, and he is doing an extraordinary thing, and I can't wait to talk about his story. And what piqued my interest, he was the first Black male valedictorian of his high school. Uh, in Spring, Texas. And so, what was cool about that is that's where my parents live. Shout out to Ed and Sandra Dent in Spring, Texas. And it wasn't too far from, probably about 15 minutes from where my parents live. So, um, as I looked at his story, he penned a book in eighth grade called Thriving in My Own Lane. And so it was about having courage and the right mindset to break through societal and cultural norms. And so, reading further, I saw that he applied to 11 universities, which included 7 Ivy League schools, and he got accepted into all of them that he applied to. And then, which I thought was even more remarkable, is that he got over $716,000 in scholarship offers. So, I mean, I just definitely had to have him on the show. And so graciously, he reached out, and I'm not going to say where he attended just yet. I mean, if you are a regular attendee of the show, you already know where that is. But his name is Davion Tatum, and we're going to talk to him about his journey from Houston to Harvard and how he's adjusting to his new home. He comes to us from there he is right now. And so let me bring him up. Davion, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Harvard's a long way from Houston, so I can't wait to talk to you and hear about your journey in your first, I guess, month and a half, or probably almost 2 months now. And so, but before we get to that, I want to just talk about first. I want to talk about your book, "Thriving in My Own Lane," and so it was kind of written to kind of break, some of those societal norms, and so what you saw. But I wanted to, before we get into, the book itself, was there a specific instance that led you to kind of think about even writing the book?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't say there was a specific instance, but I feel like it was a culmination of a lot of things that I saw around me. So at the time, I'd been playing sports for so long.
Okay.
And there was a point in my life where I was like, oh, I don't feel like playing sports anymore. I want to go and do something else. I wanted to be in the band program. I wanted to start, focusing more on my academics. I was transitioning into high school, which was, that pivotal moment. High school, everything you do in high school then helped transition to college. And I knew I wanted to go to college. So I knew like I needed to start focusing on a couple things that really not only piqued my interest, but really piqued my passion. And at that time, sports just wasn't that thing anymore. And I remember what I was met with when I wanted to no longer play sports. I used to love sports. I played basketball, football, and baseball. I did it all,
Oh, okay.
But I remember when I no longer wanted to play sports, I was met with some a little contempt. I was met with some, confusion. Like, oh, why don't you want to play sports? Like you have to. It's something you have to do as a young Black man. You should play sports. That's what
Wow.
I'm saying. I didn't want to do it anymore. That's just not, it's not my passion, not what I'm passionate about. And I told myself going forward, I would do things that I'm passionate about and things that would help other people. So all of that combined, I then started to see like, well, why is it that people see me and they immediately assume that I should play football, or they see my height and say, oh, you need to play basketball? Or I just started to ask these questions. And initially the name of my book was, What Do You See? That was my initial title, because I wanted to know, what do you see when you see me? Do you see a football player? Or do you see the next, physician or astronaut or lawyer? And that was in my book. But as I kind of started writing it and things started to, transpire in my life, I shifted from what do you see to what I started to see and how I wanted to start thriving in my own lane. So it kind of was it encompassed all of that, and it encompassed, the Black experience, being a young Black male and just seeing these things. And to even take it a step further, if something as simple as me no longer wanting to play sports caused an issue, or like made people see me in a different light, or the stereotype behind being a Black man having to play sports, if that stereotype alone caused that much trouble, then imagine in the world the stereotypes and the stigmas that could lead to even worse occurrences, And I even reference, how cops and police officers, they automatically stereotype a Black man. When they see one, it's like, oh, all right, he's either a thug, a delinquent, or a criminal, and automatically assume this narrative about us based on what they see. So I kind of wrote the book not only to address my own personal experiences with social stigma and racial stereotype, but to also address other ones as well, the more detrimental ones, if you know what I mean. So I also wrote it as an encouragement. When I first wrote it, I was a little like, I was writing from a place of like confusion, like why this, But after a while, I said, I should start to encourage other people, like beyond social stigma, beyond stereotypes. You should thrive in your own lane. You should accept your brilliance and your uniqueness as uniqueness, and not be discouraged by what other people think you should be doing, or what they think your limit to your success should be. So it's to encourage people and to also shed light on and address some of the issues that I saw.
Right. That's awesome. And so, because you mentioned height, so how tall are you, by the way?
6'2".
6'2". Okay. So yeah. So definitely where people could see you playing basketball.
Yeah.
And so that leads to my next question. So did people question why you didn't play athletics from all the community, or was it just the Black communities? Because at times we can be our own limiting beliefs. So I'd love to hear, where you got, the questions from.
That is a really good question. And that is true. Sometimes we can, be our own, enemies, sometimes without even knowing it. I would say that majority of the people that would ask me would be Black people, but I don't think that's necessarily true, because I would just ask by a lot of people, family members, random people. I was coming down the elevator at the dentist one time, and some guy saw me and was like, "Oh, so what position do you play?" And I was like, "Huh?" He was like, "What position do you play in football?" I'm just like, "Oh, I don't play football anymore." And his follow-up question was, "Well, what do you do then?" And I'm like, like what? And he was a white man, he was a white guy. So, I don't know if it was a racial thing or more of just like a social thing, a social ideology almost. Right. People just assume that. In my book, I also mentioned examples of like, why is it that we have these stigmas that even, I talked about even not as a Black male, but as just a person in general. We just automatically assume that, oh, Hispanics play soccer, or Asians are good at math. You know what I mean? Like these certain stereotypes, these generalizations, these stigmas that we just assume and we accept, we widely accept them. Why is that? So I think it's very important to know that I don't think it's a racial issue as much as it is more of like a social and stereotypical issue regarding what we see, whether that be race, gender, or whatever,
Right. And that's one of the main reasons why I created this show, because I wanted to really highlight extraordinary men, like yourself, that didn't have to do with either entertainment or sports, because that's where we, for the most part, see our men. And then it, of course, it just trickles down into the fact that, when young people say, well, I'll automatically have to be an athlete because, those are the individuals that get notoriety, or they get, a sense of pride by doing something. So, I mean, I applaud, that you came to that decision early on in your life, and you didn't have to, when your, sports career ended, you had to try to really find yourself. So I think that's fantastic. So then that leads to, your end of your high school year. You are selected, or I'm sure you, by virtue of grades, you were the first Black male valedictorian at Westfield High School. So kind of to give a context of the scope of that accomplishment, how many students were in your graduating class, and what did it feel? How did it feel to kind of represent the university? I mean, the school in that way, as being the valedictorian.
Yeah, my school's graduating class of 2021 had exactly 644 students in it. So we had a fairly large
That's
class, a lot of competition. And when I went into high school, I didn't go in with the intent of being valedictorian. I kind of went in just doing what I've been doing, which was giving my all. I knew it would be nice to be valedictorian, that would be good, but I didn't go in like I have to be valedictorian. That wasn't my intentions at the beginning.
Do some students actually go in as
a lot? You'd be surprised. A lot of kids go in like to high school already like, I gotta be top of my class, top rank, this, and they'll do certain things to like solidify their ranking. So I know the little fun fact, I was the only one in the top 10 students that did not take courses over the summer. I didn't take any courses over the summer.
Oh, wow.
But you had kids who did, and not to like, throw them on the bus or anything, but they took them. Some of them took these courses, and they took a lot of courses over the summer to kind of boost their GPA. It's called playing the GPA game. So you'll take a lot of courses over the summer at a local college. It'll get you some GPA points. You'll boost your GPA, and you can rise and rank that way.
Because they're considered easier over the summer?
Yeah. They're considered easier.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So, and I just didn't do that. I like in-person stuff. I struggled a lot virtually. My grades didn't falter, but me as a person, I like to learn in person. I like to be there, interact with my teacher, interact with my peers.
Right.
So that was difficult for me. But you have kids who they prefer to do online things, and they just did the stuff online. They just enjoyed it that way. But yeah, I was the only one in the top 10 that didn't do that. And I think that speaks more to like my staying true to myself, like my own personal lane that I was thriving in, because I said, no, I know what works for me and I know what I enjoy. And I just kept saying, I'm going to give my all in the classes that I'm taking here on campus. I don't need to go on and play the GPA game because I know what I'm doing here is correct. And then when I found out, because it was funny how I found out. So my class, they said, was the most competitive class they'd seen. Like my counselor just said, oh, y'all are different. Y'all are built different. But our ninth grade year, we flooded, like the end of our ninth grade year, we flooded the counselor's office asking for our transcripts. Ninth graders. And that's not normal. Like that doesn't happen.
No, that's not normal.
And I remember when I found out, they gave it to me, the lady, she looked at it. She was like, what you need your transcript for? She said, you're not a senior, or you're not a junior. What do you need it for? I said, I'm just curious. Well, I'm just curious. And she looked at it and she was like, and she gave it to me. She said, keep that spot. Don't let nobody take that spot. And she said, if you maintain that spot for the next 4 years or the next, you may be our school's first Black male valedictorian.
Wow.
And I was like, actually, no. She said I may be the school's first Black valedictorian. This is before Joy was the first Black female in 2019. Okay. First Black lady in 2019. So this is before Joy had became that. She said I may be the first Black valedictorian. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I was just, I just took it and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I didn't think much of it, but I just knew I was going to keep doing what I was doing. I was going to keep pushing and trying. And lo and behold, here comes 2021, and I'm announced as valedictorian, and I'm announced as the first Black male valedictorian of my high school. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So then we get to your end of your senior year, and I guess, maintaining the grades, and then you also had to apply to school.
Yeah. And
so you applied to, and I think you got accepted to 11, but how many did you actually apply? How many schools did you actually apply to?
12. The only school I did not get accepted to was MIT. MIT did not accept me.
Oh, MIT. Okay. So 11 out of the 12 you applied to, you got accepted. And then seven of those were Ivy League schools.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. And so what made you, so you ended up choosing Harvard University. And so what made you choose Harvard? Because I'm sure as we discussed earlier, during the pandemic, you couldn't actually tour any of the schools. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear, what actually factored into that decision.
So I didn't share this with my mom or anything at the time, but Harvard and Stanford were always like my top two choices. But I didn't share with anybody. I usually tell my mom everything. But I didn't even tell her.
Okay.
Because I was nervous that I wouldn't get in. The acceptance rates of those schools are so low, and like
Right.
just thing, the odds are just usually stacked against us. So I just didn't think like, oh, I put all my hope in it. Why tell people about it if it's not going to happen?
Okay.
But I remember when I was applying, I told myself I was only going to apply to schools that really I wanted to go to. I was given a lot of grief for not applying to safety schools. So even in some of the programs that I'm in, even some of my counselors and whatnot gave me a lot of grief for not applying to any safety schools. Like all the schools I applied to had less than a 10% acceptance rate, all of them. And it wasn't because like I was just trying to be cocky or anything. It was just because I only applied to schools that I knew I would attend if I got accepted.
Okay.
So like each one of those schools as an individual school, like when people kept saying, oh, make your list, like list them and rank them. And I was like, no, like I'm applying to each one of these schools as an individual school, because if I only got accepted to this one, I would be okay with going to that school. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's how I chose. That's how I made my list. And on that list just happened to be 7 Ivy League schools, and as well as like Stanford and UCLA and these other schools. And I applied there, not thinking I was going to get in. Then getting into all of them except MIT I was really shocked. I was like, whoa, like what? But it also made the decision that much more difficult because I was kind of hoping that either Harvard or Stanford accepted me. But the fact that both accepted me,
wow, right,
made it. I had to say no to one of them, which was not easy. Like telling Stanford no, like that broke my heart. So
oh wow,
I had to make a decision. And the way I made my decision was that all of these schools are incredible. They're all great.
Yeah. Okay.
But I said, where can I go that will kind of feed into my passion and what I want to do and will put me in the position to help the most people? And I remember thinking about that. And that's Harvard kind of appealed to me more because Harvard is a liberal arts college. And Harvard College, the undergraduate college, is a liberal arts college. And liberal arts kind of means that you have some curricular freedom to explore like other aspects of your interests and your academic interest and whatnot. So I remember, and Stanford, I think the liberal arts also, don't quote me on that, but I do remember looking and they said that it's more practical application. So especially for engineering students, it's more like practical application engineering, whereas Harvard does more of like a interdisciplinary, more rounded application.
More rounded, right? Okay. So,
and that factored into my decision as well. What also factored in was just thinking about what I wanted to do. I still am not actually set on what I want to do with my life and with my career and going forward. People have told me I'd be a great lawyer. But I also enjoy STEM. I've always liked science and I've always liked, math. So I just kind of like intersecting those two things kind of is where I see myself going. Maybe the intersection of medicine and law, possibly, or the intersection of like engineering and public policy, or different intersections between different disciplines. I see myself going into as a career, but that kind of helped me to choose Harvard in a way because Harvard pushes for that. They push for you to explore. Go explore your humanities interests. Go explore your scientific interests. Go explore them. So Harvard kind of pushes for exactly what I want to do. So that's kind of how I chose. How I made my decision. It was funny because everybody was like, "Oh, you just chose Harvard because it's Harvard," and I'm like, "No, I really chose of what it gives and what it offers." And I'm like, "That's why it's Harvard." You see what I'm saying? Like that's what makes it Harvard. Yes. Is because of what they offer and what they allow. So I'm excited. I'm just still adjusting.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But I did see so people were annoyed that you didn't choose a safety school. So do you think that kind of factors in to the societal, like cultural part of the fact that what are you thinking? Do you really think you're going to get into all these 11 top flight schools? You better choose a safety school. Otherwise you're not going.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that that is a issue within itself in our society. It is, especially in our school system, in our education systems,
Right.
and it's like primarily in public school systems and in school systems that are primarily what, people of color.
Right.
So you have these counselors and these people, and I don't think, I'm optimistic, so I try to think that people don't do things with malicious intent. That's what I try to think. So I don't feel like people say like, oh, you need to apply to a safety school because you're not going to get into these schools. Even though that's what they may think, I try to believe that they're really just worried and concerned. But that goes into our mindset,
Right.
the fact that you even doubt, or the fact that you think like, oh, you do know those schools have low acceptance rates, right? You do know those schools are such and such. You do know only this many people, this. And it's like, it's disheartening, because and it only happens within our communities, like within the schools, within our communities. And that's why you have a low, not even acceptance rate, but a low application rate with people of color. One of my essays that I wrote for, I think, Caltech, actually talked about, they said, how would you diversify our campus? And, most people would say, I go there as a Black male, I do this and I do that. But I said, no, I want to take it a step back. Like, I want to get more people of color to even apply, to even think about applying there. Because when you come from like certain environments, even myself, I applied to all these schools, but in the back of my mind, I still had that same thought, like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna get in. I may not get in, or this, because of what people around me might have told me,
Right.
And just imagine if I was that student. I had friends who literally would say, Davion, we're not you. We can't do that. I'm like, just apply. They refuse to even apply because of what they had been told, because of what people said, because of what they thought it was. And I just, stepped out on a leap of faith and just said, no, I'm gonna apply anyway. I'm gonna follow. Right. I'm gonna take my own advice that I wrote in that book in 8th grade, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do it anyway, despite what people say. And it paid off. And if there's one thing I would give any advice, it'd just be to apply, do it, put forth your best foot, put forth your best effort. And it's like, I think that within itself is an issue we need to address. And I like to go back to the school, my school. My school is predominantly Hispanic and Black, and being the first Black male valedictorian, although that was an accomplishment, I could put it on my application. I felt great about it, like it was good. It's also speaking to the school, and it's also speaking to the environment, because we are at a school that's mainly Black and mainly Hispanic. So why have we not had a Black male before me, or a Black young lady before Joy in 2019? You know what I mean? So it's like, why have we not had that when we have a school that is predominantly people of color? So I think it's all connected, and how mindsets shape reality.
Right.
And because you have, even my own counselor, my counselors loved me. Everybody loved me there. But even they would say, I think you're doing too much with the classes you're taking, or I think you're stressing yourself out doing this. And I don't think they did it maliciously, but that's really what they were taught. That's what we've been trained to think.
Did you ever say you were stressed?
Oh, I was stressed.
Okay. Okay. I was. Right.
But I didn't express it like, oh, I'm stressed, I need help. I mean, if you're taking 4 AP classes, you're going to be stressed. Even the best of us are going to be stressed. Here at Harvard, we're all considered the cream of the crop, and we're all, stressed out. But it's a good stress because you're learning. But it's even that, I feel like it's the way we've been trained. We've been trained to think a certain way. In my book, I call it psychosocial indoctrination. We've been taught to think a certain way. And it's like, you have this division, amongst things. And it's like this cycle that's going to continue, because you have people who are in places of power, who are teaching other people of color, who say, oh, you may not be able to do this, or you may want to try and go somewhere else, or apply to a safety school because this is too difficult, this is this and this. Then you have those kids who don't apply to any schools. Then they get into, or they go somewhere and don't want to go to college because of what people might have told them about college. Or then you have that cycle that's continuing, because then what are they going to tell their kids? So it's like, you have this cycle that just keeps going. And I really want to, I hope to one day break this cycle. I feel like I've been able to break it a little bit with my own actions, but even being the first Black male valedictorian, that was fun, but I want to make sure I'm not the last at Westfield. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And before we get to Harvard, because I do want to ask this question then, so from just your black male peers at the high school, what was their, what kind of, I guess, response did you get from them? Because, you're basically a unicorn. So for the lack of better, because you were the first black male valedictorian. So with that comes certain choices that you had to make, and whereby, hanging out or things like that had to get put on the back burner, because I'm sure that once you knew that, you had to make sure you maintain that as well. So I'd love to hear, what was some of the feedback or response that you heard from your peers, male peers?
So, funny enough, I actually was able to, if you ask my mom, she'd say I didn't have a balance.
Okay.
I actually feel like I was able to maintain a certain balance between my academics and my fun.
Okay.
So to the extent of where I was known enough and I was respected enough that people understood, like, if I can't go to this party, or if I can't do this, or if I can't go out there, they understood. It's like, oh yeah, that's Davion. He doing something. And some of them would call me like Mr. President or whatever. Like, oh yeah, Mr. President got to do something, But I had that respect because I wasn't the type of kid that feels like, I feel like we're all the same. I really do. Like, I feel like we are all just humans here trying to make it through. And I treat everybody the same, and I treat everybody with respect and dignity.
Okay.
And, even some people were like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're doing too much. Even them, I respected them and I respected their opinions, because maybe to them I was doing too much, but to me, I'm doing what needs to be done. And, I had to kind of understand that being in these AP classes, the people that I was constantly around shifted. You see what I'm saying? So like the people I was around in middle school, being in these AP classes, I was no longer around those people. But I still kept in contact with them, but I just wasn't as close to them as I used to be.
Right.
Because the majority of AP courses were taken by Asians and the few white people we had in my school. Majority of that. It was, obviously you're at a predominantly black and Hispanic school. You have some black and Hispanics in there, but it was mainly Asians or white people. So, but I had to, find that balance. And I often struggled with it though, because I'm like, oh, dang, I don't want to lose any friends, but I also don't want to lose what I'm trying to do,
Right. Absolutely.
But I do feel like for the most part, it was positive. It's because I was like that cool nerd, I guess.
Okay.
I was still involved, and I was still there, and I didn't just I didn't choose. I didn't say like, oh, this is this and that's it. Like, I was still there, and I was able to find that balance. And I kept telling my mom, I said, I feel like I was able to live in both worlds, just by being myself.
Right.
And I feel like that's a key component. I think sometimes people feel like you have to choose. Like, oh, I gotta be, if I'm hanging with my friends, I gotta be like this. If I'm hanging with these people in this smart class or whatever, I gotta be like this. But I was always the same all the time, so people just respected me from both sides of the fence. When it came to like, oh, hanging out and having fun, or getting my work done and being a student or whatever. So I feel like it was positive because I was able to have both. I was able to exist in both worlds. And so people were very excited for me, very proud of me. And when I got like my little local fame, they were like, everybody was so excited and everybody was so proud. So I do feel it's mostly positive, but I definitely could see the parts where I would feel like I needed to choose. And I had to remind myself, like, no, you don't have to choose. You're good. Like, you're okay. Just keep thriving your own lane. So
Right. Okay. So so we're at Harvard. It's been about a month and a half. So how's it been so far?
It's been pretty good. I'm still adjusting. I don't know who I was talking to. I said, I feel like we're going to be adjusting for the next 4 years, but I'm still adjusting. I think that I came here with the idea that like people would be really cutthroat, or like you're around a bunch of super smart kids and they're just going to be a bunch of buttholes, like they're just going to be mean. And surprisingly and thankfully, I've actually met some very, very incredible and nice people. You still do have those people who, cutthroat, and I told my mom, I said, I think I'd be forgetting that like Harvard is like the realm of like all the gov majors and like the politicians. So you have people here playing like political games sometimes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like real politics. But it's fun, and it's interesting to see like different perspectives. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is Harvard's most diverse class. I know it's Harvard's largest class, but I think it's also Harvard's most diverse class.
Okay, wow.
So to see like, I have a friend who's from Albania, and to see like I met someone else from New Zealand, and someone else from Paris, and just to see their perspectives, and they all come here, and we have these shared interests and shared perspectives, and we have these like urges to fight against inequality, and we all have these same, like innate feelings like, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that, like we have to fix these issues within our system, we have to fix this. Like to see that, I mean, you have people from all across the world who have come here, and we all share like that same passion to help others. Like for the most part, we all share that same passion to help others, and that's why people came here. It's really a blessing. It really is. Right. It's really incredible. Classes, I have a lot of work all the time, but it's okay because I'm learning, and I particularly like this one class. It's called Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Cares. It's reimagining global health. So it takes it takes a biosocial lens. So biosocial meaning the biological and the social aspects of global health, and what has contributed to a lot of the disparities that we see within global health and within healthcare in general. It takes a biosocial lens to that, and it discusses how like, oh, people think that people think certain things or certain stereotypes about a certain group of people based on like, oh, they're more prone to get sick, or they're more prone to this or to that because of their way of living. But if you really think about it and take a step back, it's like, no, they're more prone to it because of what has been done to them throughout the course of history, or what has happened to them, or how they've been systematically disadvantaged and disenfranchised for so long that now they are reaping the issues of what other people have done to them. So we have to fix that, and just looking at things through a different lens, and just seeing things like, and as someone who wants to go into medicine, just seeing these things like how we can rectify racial disparity, how we can fix, inequalities within our healthcare system, and just seeing where they stemmed from and how we can stop them, and yeah, it's so interesting. I really enjoy it. I'm enjoying it so far.
Great. Well, I know, I'm not sure if your mom is listening or watching, but we don't want to make her nervous. But what would you say has been your biggest struggle so far, and then what's been your biggest surprise about college?
Struggle. Let me see. I guess a struggle for me would be the fact that this is gonna sound so arrogant when I say it, but I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm not used to losing. I'm not used to not like excelling, or like not being the best, or like that guy. So to come here, I actually let you in on something. What's today? Today is the 19th. On the 17th, I lost an election. So we did our undergraduate council election. I ran to be part of the undergraduate council as a freshman, and I lost. And I'm not used to that.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't know how to handle that. I'm not used to losing. Or I applied to one of these programs, and they said, "Oh, we enjoyed your application, but would you like to apply to be on the wait list?" I'm like, I gotta apply to be on the wait list? Like, what, So I guess that would be like both a surprise and something that just I'm not used to, or but it's beautiful because it's a humbling experience, and it's, you come here and you're around other people who have done just as much, if not more, than you have done, and to learn from other people and to see other people excelling. It can do one or two things. It can deter you, or it can encourage you.
Okay.
And right now I feel like I'm being encouraged, and I'm being, uplifted, because I'm surrounded by people who I feel I can learn from, instead of
how many votes did you lose by?
I actually don't know. I don't think I lost by many. It's no way I lost. It's like 2 or 3 votes. That's it. That's max. But it's beautiful to see like myself be humbled, and myself to learn and grow from others. Usually people will be looking up to me like, oh yeah, Davian, well, what do you think about this? Or how do you do this? Or like looking up to me for the answers. and to be here. And I mean, that still happens on occasion, but for the most part, it's like a collaboration. You know, we're all looking to each other because we all respect each other as being, you know, brilliant in their own way. Like we all made it here, so obviously all of us have something to offer, something to bring forth to the table, and something to add. So I think that's both beautiful and surprising for me. I was also very surprised at how political these people are.
Okay.
They during the election, I mean, things got heated. You know, like people was we doing joint campaigns. We over here doing this, we doing that. I mean, playing a political game like to get in. So it was that was really interesting to see. Also,
yeah, the East Coast is competitive. Like,
competitive, and I'm like,
they don't play around.
They don't
play around. No.
What's happening? So I think that was interesting. But I also believe in, like, you know, shifting away from that too. You know, I was telling somebody, I said, where they run the UC like politics is ran, you know, political games and, you know, political agendas. And I was like, well, we need to shift from that. You know, we need to start going in and like really saying, like, okay, we're going to vote for people who really want to make a difference and want to make change and want to bring about something positive versus just the person who played the best game, you know. And I had people who agreed with me. So I feel like we may be shifting in that direction. But it was definitely a surprise to see how competitive it was and how, like, people, although like they're smart and they're collaborative, they also have that side to them where it'd be like, no, because I gotta go in and get mine. So
right.
You know.
Yeah, and shout out to my I've got big Georgetown contingent that usually bought because I went to Georgetown, but they wanted to know, was Georgetown actually on your list? Shout out to Lorraine. Hey, Lorraine, was Georgetown on your list when you applied?
Crazy part is a lot of schools were on my list that I ended up not applying to. I got the privilege of staying at Georgetown, so Georgetown has actually been on my list since about 10th grade, as was Loyola and Richmond. They were on my list. I did not apply to them though. I'm sorry, I didn't apply to them, but they were on my list to apply to, as was Howard and what's the other one? There was one more I was going to apply to, but I forgot, or I guess I didn't know at the time how much went into a college application. So I was like, okay, I'm about to cut this list down.
Yeah. And I know you were interested in engineering, so I know Georgetown didn't have an engineering background, or degree. So I'm sure that might have played a part in that. So I know your mom and your sister, whatever, was a big, you know, inspiration for your success. So, you know, how did they really actually help you with this transition period?
In like transitioning to college, they were here. They stayed here for a very long time.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yes, and they had a hotel and they stayed here and they helped me move in. They made sure I was set up nice. They made sure everything was good. They didn't leave me. And they were like, I had to tell them to leave. Like,
oh, wow. Okay.
I had to like say, like, guys, you've been here for like a week and a half. You can go now. Like, it's okay. I'm good. But they were here for a long time. And they were just loving and caring and just blessed. They were way nicer here than they are at home. So I don't know if it's because we were up north. They just wanted to be nice to me, but they were way nicer.
Well, that's just a testament to your who you are. I don't think I gave my parents a week, let alone, a couple hours, let alone a week. So, you know, I'm sure they would have loved to have stayed, but I was like, all right, I'm good. So, that's really hats off to you. So, so I'd have to say, because, you know, we do focus on, you know, Black males or Black men, and for any young men that may be listening and, you know, when they're choosing or struggling about trying to, I guess, reach that next level, what words of encouragement would you give them?
Honestly, I would say, I say this is my thread throughout like all of my interviews. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Be yourself. And by that, I mean, being yourself should come literally as natural as like breathing. To be yourself, to be your authentic self. It should come as natural as like breathing. Because when you're being you and you're doing what you're passionate about, it's easy. It's easy. It really is, and people don't believe it. It really is. I had interview after interview, and I was talking about things that I was passionate about. So it was easy for me. You know, they were like, "How do you do these interviews? How do you talk so comfortably in these interviews?" And I'm like, I'm talking about things that I'm passionate about. I'm talking about things that I enjoy. I'm talking about that thing that's within me that gives that spark, that flame, that fire that burns within me. So it's easy for me. You know, it's easy for me to be me because that's who I am. So if I had to encourage you, I'd say be yourself despite all odds. You know, be yourself despite all issues. Don't be deterred by them, but be encouraged to fix them. You know, when I remember during the pandemic, as like when it first hit, and then you had all these things that were happening in our society. I mean, you had people being killed by police brutality. You had the pandemic happening. You had administration that didn't seem to really be doing much. So you just had all these things happening. And I just remember looking at them like, wow, like I'm probably never gonna make it to like my dream school. I'm probably never gonna make it to be able to see certain things. And I remember at a certain point, I stopped being deterred by it and discouraged by it. And I was encouraged to fix it. You know, I never felt that saying anymore, be the change you wish to see. I never felt that more than I did during the pandemic because I saw issues and I was like, oh, wow, someone needs to fix that. And I was like, oh, wait, you need to fix that. I need to fix that. I can fix that, you know? And I think that when we really are being ourselves, things reveal itself to us that we're supposed to do. I believe I believe that God put all of us here for a reason.
Okay. Yes.
So I feel that if we're ourselves and we really try and walk on our path and thrive in our own lane, that what we're supposed to do will be revealed to us and we'll be able to do it by being us. You know, it's not going to be a force. It's not going to be a struggle. I mean, you're going to have your ups and downs, but it's not going to be like a difficult thing to be you and to do what you're supposed to do. And I really believe that because despite it all, in spite of it all, you know, you're still unique. You're still brilliant. And in my book, I even talk about how we need to start embracing our brilliance, you know, in society and just crazy parties across our country. We've been taught to like, oh, try to hide our blackness or try to be ashamed of being black or be ashamed of certain things. No, embrace it because you're brilliant and you're wonderful and you're incredible. So I want to encourage anybody listening to this, whether you're a young black man, young black girl, if you're any person of color, just be yourself. Like seriously, be yourself, embrace your brilliance, embrace your uniqueness, and embrace your passion. Because I really feel like our generation, this is just me saying this, but I feel like our generation is really going to bring about some true change. So I'm excited.
Well, that'll be great. And I pray that I'll be here to see it. So, and so before I let you go, because I know I don't want your mom tracking me down, kept you from studying. As a black young man, what's on your mind right now?
What's on my mind right now?
Yeah.
I didn't finish eating that quesadilla that I got. Right now, what's on my mind, I'm here at Harvard. So I'm in the position to do some big things. And I really just don't want to miss any opportunities to help people on a large scale. So like everything that I see, I'm like grabbing onto, you know, I'm gravitating towards and I'm catching and I'm grabbing it because I want to make sure that I take every opportunity that I've been blessed with to help other people. I'm here and I'm here for a reason. So I want to make sure that I use my resources that I have around me to really do something impactful and meaningful and helpful, you know? And that's really what's on my mind, you know, that and trying to figure out these P sets and these, and all these, you know, all this homework and all these learning pods we have to do. So I'm really just trying to use my resources, you know, and use what I have and my tools at my disposal to really do some good. And even as a little freshman, I still feel like I have the ability and the power to do some good with the resources I'm given. So that's really what's on my mind right now.
Well, Davion, I have to say that I think you are a great young man. I'm blessed that I had the opportunity to speak with you. And I think, you know, just the fact that you are there now and you're attacking this journey, I think with passion and vigor, I think you'll be all right. So, I'm sure you do. You're a very confident young man. Know that what you're doing is great. So I thank you for being on today, taking a few minutes to speak to me, and I usually close, but I won't keep you, and because I know you got to get some work done. And thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good night.
You too.
Okay. So remember that name, Davion Tatum. Here's a young man who, and which we didn't get to talk about, but self-taught algebra starting in the first grade. And he is doing some things that are going to be going to take notice. You know, a lot of times we don't hear about or get to see greatness before they're already great. But here's a young man that I think we're going to hear about in some capacity, whether it be healthcare or math, or even, hey, who knows, our next Black president, or Black male president, I should say, because, you know, look, Kamala, we're waiting for you. We're waiting for you to be the next president there. So remember that name. And for those that are on, I got a couple of Hoyas on tonight. Hey, Nona, what's up? We have a special treat. We'll be back next week because we will be doing quarterly. Now we'll be doing a relationship segment. So we had I had a young gentleman on. It's probably about a few months ago, and we're going to be back to talk about some specific issues regarding men's perspective on relationships. So don't miss it. And then also, if you want to catch previous episodes, you can go to our Black Men Speak podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, either Apple, Spotify, or wherever. And we really look forward to sharing different perspectives on relationships next week. So thank you for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. And I love the fact that Davion talked about being passionate at what you do, because I really love doing this, and especially getting to speak to young men and men such as Davion. So I'm out. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk soon.